Hello, and welcome to Gospel News. We bring you stories making religious news here in America and around the globe.
And church means many things to many people, but the most common thread is that it is a safe place. In one Catholic church in Clinton, Louisiana, it was anything but safe for one member. Cheryl Mercedes tells us more.
The parents of a child who claims she was molested several years ago by an older parishioner of Our Lady of Assumption Catholic Church in Clinton, Louisiana, is suing the alleged now-deceased perpetrator, George Charlet Jr., along with a priest and the Catholic Diocese of Baton Rouge.
Certain acts were revealed.
Attorney Brian Abels, who is representing the parents, says the girl, who was then 14, was sexually abused.
This is kissing and touching and fondling. The very last time our client, this young lady, thought she was going to be raped.
The suit alleges the girl went to confession 3 times, each time telling the priest, Father Jeff Bahi, that Charlet had touched her inappropriately and told her he wanted to make love to her. The priest, according to the suit, allegedly told her, "This is your problem. Sweep it under the floor and get rid of it." Attorney Abels says the priest told no one about the allegations and is therefore liable for the sexual abuse his client claims continued.
Her testimony has been it was more of a plea of help, a plea for counseling, and that plea, according to her, went unheeded.
But because the counseling took place in a confessional, the Catholic Church contends Father Bahi did the right thing. In a statement, the Diocese of Baton Rouge said a foundational doctrine of the Roman Catholic Church for thousands of years mandates that the seal of confession is absolute and inviolable. Pursuant to his oath to the Church, a priest is compelled never to break that seal. A district court judge ruled, however, that the girl can testify in court about what she said in confession. An appeals court disagreed, saying the alleged victim could not testify about the confession and that the priest was not required by law to report the allegations of abuse. But the Louisiana Supreme Court issued an opinion saying the girl can indeed testify. However, the High Court took it a step further, noting the trial judge must decide whether a priest has a duty to report the allegations of sexual abuse perpetrated on a minor parishioner.
Well, that's more of a concern.
Attorney Yigal Bander, who is not involved in this case, says this is where things could get even more complicated.
Does it violate the First Amendment to make a priest a mandatory reporter under any based on a confession under any circumstances? That may be a legitimate concern the church has.
The diocese responded that the Louisiana Supreme Court has overstepped its boundaries and has violated the First Amendment. For a civil court to impinge upon the freedom of religion is a clear violation, and the matter will be taken to the highest court in the land, that being the U.S. Supreme Court.
I think they're saying the church can't decide it based on an interpretation of what is a confession, because courts have no business deciding that, which is true.
Abel says it was never his intention to get the priest to testify. Rather, he wants a jury to hear the case and decide whether Father Bahi and the Catholic Church are responsible for his client suffering years of alleged sexual abuse.
And it's our position that regardless of where that happened, she should be able to testify as to what she told the priest and anyone else about this particular unfortunate situation.
He expects the case will go to trial next year.
It took 3 years for comedians and Catholics to find a mutually agreeable way to rename part of a Manhattan street after George Carlin, the merrily vulgar comic who made religion a frequent target of his acerbic monologues. A bill signed into law on Wednesday finally declared that a 2-block stretch of West 121st Street was named George Carlin Way, but it was supposed to be only 1 block and not the one once home to Mr. Carlin, and still home to the Corpus Christi Church. Priests there opposed the plan for years, calling Mr. Carlin, who died in 2008, unworthy of the honor. Yet in an irony of Carlin-esque proportions, a clerical error means that Mr. Carlin's childhood church will indeed reside on a block ceremonially named for the comic who relentlessly skewered it. It will only be temporary. All sides describe the mix-up as a simple mistake to be amended in the fall when the city council votes on another batch of street renamings, and church officials have been assured that a street sign bearing Mr. Carlin's name will not be posted until the problem is sorted out. But the hiccup offers yet another bit of compelling evidence that even years after his death, Mr. Carlin's famed ability to irritate and frustrate the powers that be remains undiminished. The one-block compromise came about after years of community board hearings and negotiations between comedians hoping to honor the trailblazing comic and members of Corpus Christi, whose school Mr. Carlin attended and later mocked in his stand-up routines. Councilman Mark Levine, the bill's sponsor, said that, in fact, the legislation would be corrected as soon as possible.
The Journal looks at what Archbishop Michael Sheehan has had to overcome as a leader of New Mexico's Catholic Church.
The church is going to have to do an exhaustive search process, and a rather secretive search process,
to replace Archbishop Michael Sheehan. The Journal reports that search could take anywhere from several months to a year. But Sheehan will eventually leave after serving New Mexico's Catholics well.
He came here under extraordinary circumstances in 1993. Archbishop Robert Sanchez had just resigned under very difficult circumstances.
Sanchez had been accused of having inappropriate relationships with a number of women, and the New Mexico Church as a whole had its own problems.
And there were also about 14 priests that had been accused of sexual impropriety with parishioners.
As lawsuits were piling up against the archdiocese, Archbishop Sheehan kept the church afloat, especially since there were major settlements.
How he dealt with the crisis, he managed to keep the archdiocese from falling into bankruptcy, which was one of his major accomplishments early on.
The rabbi versus the robot. This unusual scene is playing out inside the Jewish Museum of Berlin. On one side, Rabbi Reuven Yakubov is writing Torah scrolls by hand, doing the painstaking work for 2 hours a day. On the other side, a robot working 10 hours a day to inscribe the religious writings, the first robot to write in Hebrew. The creators of the robot say this project is not about robots mimicking humans, but it's robots creating an object that has meaning for people. A full Torah scroll contains more than 300,000 letters. It will take the robot 3 months to complete it. Rabbi Yakubov calls it a piece of beautiful art, and it shows that humans can create these kinds of robots. But the program director of the museum reminds everyone that the work of the robot cannot be used in a synagogue, but it can become part of a collection. Matt Friedman, Associated Press.
Word that a parish priest had been defrocked shocked the Catholic community. A statement from the office of the Archbishop of Castries issued on Monday, July 7, states in part that allegations of inappropriate behavior incompatible with the priesthood were brought against a priest of the Archdiocese of Castries. The Archdiocese initiated a process of investigation. The accuser and the accused priest were interviewed by the delegates appointed, and the review board, after serious deliberations on the report filed by the delegates, concluded that the accused priest, in his relationship with the accuser, acted inappropriately. It adds that this inappropriate behavior, incompatible with the priesthood, is a serious matter, and has taken the decision to withdraw the priest from pastoral ministry with immediate effect. The priest has been put on leave and during this time will receive spiritual and counseling support. The accuser has also been offered counseling support.
Archbishop Robert Rivas describes the suspension of Grosley Parish priest Stephen Quinlan as an act of love.
And do it is never an easy thing. You know, it was a painful thing, but you have to do what you have to do when the moment comes, because we have to act rightly and justly, you know, also with compassion, and do things lovingly, but we have to do the right thing.
Archbishop Rivas says there is still hope for Father Quinlan as a member of the clergy.
For me, what we have to do is to look at the positive side. We have tried to deal with this fairly, and in the end, there is hope. Father Quinlan will get the spiritual and counseling help he needs, and by the grace of God, down the road, he will continue to be a priest.
President of the SDA Mission, Pastor Johnson Frederick, supports the decision of the Catholic Church to take action against one of its priests following what the church called, quote, inappropriate behavior incompatible with the priesthood, unquote. The church leader says as men of God, religious leaders are held to a high standard, and rightly so. He says when there is a breach of trust and ethics, leaders must face the consequences. But he says in denouncing behavior, there should not be shunning of the individual. He says the church must act, but must provide intervention and guidance to help the fallen achieve redemption.
As a church, I think the society expects the best from us, they expect the highest standard of morality, but we are also, if you want to say, an institution that still exists in a world that is broken and that is sinful. And when things go wrong, the public should not seek to throw the baby with the bathwater.
Since the announcement by the Catholic Church, many say this is a positive step for a church which has been rocked internationally by controversy of cover-ups and scandals.
And the head of one of the largest church organizations in Barbados says he has no confidence in government's apparent promise to review the municipal solid waste tax within a year's time. Speaking in his personal capacity, Bishop of Pawi, that's the Pentecostal Assemblies of the West Indies, Reverend Jerry Seal, tells Barbados that he is reminded of the value-added tax which was to be reviewed in 18 months, yet Barbadians are still paying it. Seal, whose organization represents 25 assemblies across this country, says Pawi has asked Minister of Finance Chris Sinclair to review the municipal levy.
I have written the Minister of Finance to that effect. I also noted that the Minister of Finance is supposed to have said that it will be reviewed in 1 year, which reminded me about the review that we did with the value-added tax, when it went up from 15 to 17.5%, and we reviewed it in 18 months, and we're still paying it. So saying to me that there's a review in 1 year only reminds me of what happened with the value-added tax. It gives me no confidence that the review will actually result in redress.
Pope Francis will make a private visit to a friend in Caserta, about 110 miles southeast of Rome. But not just any friend. His name is Giovanni Traetino, and he's an evangelical pastor. The two met during an ecumenical gathering in Buenos Aires back in 2006. The Vatican spokesperson explained that it will be a strictly private visit. The pastor will likely welcome the Pope at his Evangelical Church of Reconciliation. The Vatican explained that the idea surfaced last month during the audience between Pope Francis and a group of evangelical pastors following the yearly charismatic renewal gathering. In the past, the Pope sent a video message to an evangelical Christian conference. He asked the participants to pray for unity between all Christians.
Sports are universal. They have the ability to motivate and inspire unique excitement. Over the past year, time and time again, Pope Francis has highlighted the spiritual side of athletics.
È bello quando in parrocchia c'è il gruppo sportivo e se non c'è un gruppo sportivo in parrocchia manca qualcosa, Se non c'è il gruppo manca qualcosa.
And sports are also part of the Vatican. In 2013, its cricket team was born. It's not that popular in Europe, but it's very popular in Asia. Now sports and religion are joining forces for a good cause. In the month of September, the Vatican's cricket team will play against its Anglican counterpart.
It is a way to promote ecumenism through sports by highlighting the common roots between the Church of Rome and the Church of England. Along with the Archbishop of Canterbury, we agreed that all proceeds will promote projects we both working, like fighting against human trafficking and modern slavery.
Before this match, the Vatican will have two other games. One against a team of journalists and the other against the British royal household, which represents Queen Elizabeth. The Vatican's team includes priests and seminarians studying in Rome. It's not an official league, but the team plays friendly matches.
Several English teams that visit Italy have asked to play a friendly game against our team. We welcome it and hope it continues.
In the future, once the Vatican team is more established, it hopes to play against other teams of different religions. It's a basic and friendly way to promote interreligious dialogue, where the starting rule is simply to have fun and play fair.
The Church of England has called for an inquiry into assisted dying. It follows a U-turn by former Archbishop of Canterbury Lord Carey, who said he would back legislation to allow the terminally ill in England and Wales get help to end their lives. The current Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, says the assisted dying bill is mistaken and dangerous, but the Church said an inquiry would include expert opinion and carefully assess the arguments. Speaking on behalf of the Church of England, the Bishop of Carlisle, the Right Reverend James Newcombe, said a royal commission would allow the important issue to be discussed at length. Fresh allegations of child sex abuse against the Church of England are likely to surface. The Archbishop of Canterbury has warned. The Most Reverend Justin Welby said he was braced for an abuse inquiry to reveal bad stories about the Church. He told the BBC's Andrew Marr show that he dealt with the issue daily and that the Church needed to be transparent. It comes after the Home Office-backed Baroness Butler-Slaw says the right person to lead that inquiry. Archbishop Welby said that abuse survivors needed to be shown justice and called for transparency from the Church in how it dealt with the issue.
For many, many years, things were not dealt with as they should have been dealt with. And we must show justice to survivors of abuse. That is the first and absolute principle. And we must be absolutely transparent in every possible way. And we have to keep saying how utterly devastated we are with the terrible things that were done in the past and how sorry we are.